we're going to do what we did last time. I don't know if any of you are here for round 2, but what I'm going to do is we'll start the program here. We might as well, since we're all standing here. But we're going to basically walk down to where you see that monument all the way down on the left. I'll be following the road, but we'll follow it down to there, and then we're going to make a loop and then come back to this monument you can't see very well over here behind the tree. So we're basically going to go out today, ladies and gentlemen, and follow Biddle's battle line in the battle walk. So not too far. This walk was designed for 2 reasons. One, I did it for the anniversary, so it was more people. You know, not that I don't have enough people today. But it's more people, so I have to simplify things. One of the college kids was asking me yesterday, why did you choose that? They're all very interested why I did Union. Well, Union's got more asphalt. I don't know why that works out that way, but I mean, you know, and I've got, you know, I can't take 200 people from, you know, the Mississippi monument to the Trossel farm like Dan Welch did. You know, that's just people can't do it. Road tripping.
Is that the main reason? Is that the main reason they tried to split it up? To even out the people?
Well, they want more even people on the tours.
Yeah,
that's
right.
true.
Can't have 500 people on one tour.
It's much better broken up.
Well, I think when you get into that, you also get into the subject. You know, people very well-meaning people come up all the time and tell me how much they enjoy or they think it's hard. I can tell you that if I have done non-Gettysburg subjects, like for the winter lecture, and I have not sold out. So the question becomes, you know, how much is the subject? You know, how many people chose 21st Mississippi during the anniversary over McGilvery's artillery line? I mean, how many people want to go on an artillery hike on the anniversary? You know what I mean? So it is somewhat subject driven, you know. From there.
How were the crowds for the anniversary?
What y'all think? I don't know.
Large, but good.
Yeah.
It went smoothly, the larger groups. We were in several very large groups, like 200 plus, and they went smoothly.
Yeah, I thought the split up did well. I mean, as far as, you know, not advertising. You know, frankly, you know, you put Troy's name out there, I mean, you're gonna like, you know, go to it. So they've got, you know, got that factor there. We're trying to change. I'm gonna say change. Change, I guess, is change, but don't take change like you usually take change nowadays, all right? When I say change, I mean modify, all right? We're still trying to come up with new ideas because we've got so many repeat visitors here that y'all, and I've got new visitors here, I understand, first time, etc. Now, and I'll try to talk to both crowds. But y'all been coming for so long, we're trying to figure out something new for y'all to do. And it's hard, you know? It's like it's like a band that, you know, had the greatest hits were 30 years ago. I mean, well, how do you go out there and keep it fresh and then, you know, modify it though and make it cool, you know, for the thing. So we're looking for suggestions and stuff whenever.
Matt, have they ever done, I was actually saying this during this trip, have you guys ever done a hike out at East Calvary Field?
We used to do it.
Because I'd love to go to one out there.
Yeah.
We used to do it. We don't really have. It used to be Tom Holbrook. We've been doing it once a week.
Chuck Teed did.
Chuck Teed too. Yes.
Yes.
And I can remember, you know, I don't know what year that was, but I can remember going out there and hoping none of y'all showed up. I can tell you that. You talk about a weak area of the field. I could go learn it if I had a program coming up, but you know, since I don't have to, I don't. I mean, you could tell me the Russians were coming over the hill. I've always wanted to see some Cossacks.
Hey, if they have LBGs do it, just have Tesla do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Tesla
you
does
could.
that.
Yeah.
Look at it. Give him a plug for
I think that
Hessler.
would be-
My tool. You do that? I
What
tell
about
you
the
what.
South Battlefield, Cavalry Field?
Chuck
You
Teague,
know, we
Teague
don't-
did
we don't
that
see a
too.
lot on that.
He
Here a
did
little
that
bit.
too.
Route 15. Everything is.
Way out there.
Yeah.
How would you get from the spot?
Well, okay. I didn't mean to open up the complaint department.
No, these are
The,
suggestions.
y'all come on in out of that sun over there. You're gonna get enough sun today. You might as well get some. I'm talking to y'all. Y'all need to get out that sun now because this is the only shade you're gonna get for a while. You might as well soak it up. For instance, we're trying this previous meeting. We're struggling with Pickett's Charge. We're going across the field this year. Let's talk about the positives. We brought the battle walks back, right? That's why I'm
Yes.
here on a Friday.
Yeah.
We brought the campfires back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Y'all don't need to thank me. I mean, Chris Gwynn's the guy running the show over there, but me and Troy just sit in the back. But yeah, so I mean, but we wanted, like I said earlier, we want to do something different. And I don't mean I mean not only areas of the field, let me qualify that, or I mean ideas. I mean, how could we do something different, you know? How many times can I saw off a leg? I mean, I'm getting a little burnt out.
If you do this tour 5 days a week, talk about different individuals and battalions and type of hardships that they endured and stuff like that.
One of the main strengths of Gettysburg, I always thought, was the fact that we are not given script. You can, if somebody did a Biddle's Brigade walk tomorrow, unless they're using my notes, you would come out here and you would get a brand new presentation with different quotes. I hope the ending's the same, but etc. And that's the strength, of the National Cemetery Tour. You could take 2 or 3 in a day, and you should get 3 different tours.
Different stories.
Different
Right,
stories
right.
like that. And that's another thing. I don't know, for the shorter programs, I could go and modify them, so forth. But yeah.
That's why for us, if it's the same tour over and over again, yeah, you like that? Get it.
No, I think you bought it.
But if it's the
Go
same,
ahead.
if it's the same program, it's always a different interpretation every time we hear it. So I always learn something new.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't care if it's the same program over and over again, really.
Yeah.
We always get something new. We always get more information, different information.
We thought about interactive programs, like you come out here and each one. HOTAC is doing some of this, but you come out and you give
the
a
envelope.
soldier's roll.
Yep.
I heard that worked pretty good the other day. That's a lot of work though, put together 200 names.
How many
Well, that way
interns you
it's
have come up here
interns.
every summer? Put them to work.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what you
I
do.
don't
Tell
think-
them before they leave, they need 5 new ideas by the end of the summer.
Well, that word that verb you just used is an anathema in the government. You can imagine what you're getting. for
Oh,
free.
worked it.
For free. Oh, I'm kidding, but shout out to my dad though. He didn't find anything more worthless than government employee. All right, so why don't we do this so I can get in one direction? I've got the camera behind me. Why don't you shift over here with the crowd? And why don't we do this? Why don't y'all shift over here and I'm just talking and y'all get in the shade. If you want to, how about you back up or come forward or y'all get behind there or whatever and I can quit rotating like y'all can hear me.
We can see all this.
Okay, don't stay right in front of us though.
Don't get too excited and start jumping up and down.
Yep. Oh, here it is. All right. So I'd like to welcome everybody to the 10-10 Battle Walk. All right, so we're going to, I hope none of you have seen this. This was just taped, but I thought I would do it again Why? Because I just done it and it's brand new, and it's like coming out of the studio with a new song. You know when you go to see your favorite rock group, they've got to plug the new album about 2 to 3 songs into the concert. You're gonna get 2 or 3, things, a new song. So anyway, Biddle's new to me. So let's talk about the big picture before we go down to the small picture. So big picture is this. This is the beginning of the battle. This is where the first shots of the battle are going to be fired. To orient you, you can't see anything in the woods, but we're in the shade. Where you see that darkness over there, that blackness through the trees, that's the South Mountain range over there, okay? And so that range right there is where the Confederate Army is coming into Pennsylvania. As they come north into Pennsylvania, they cross over the mountains, the vanguard of it, and they flood the Susquehanna Valley, which is basically what I'm saying. By the end of June, the Confederate Army is spread out from Chambersburg, Pennsylvania to Harrisburg, almost to Harrisburg. They're right on the banks of the Susquehanna. So that's the scene when the Confederate Army gets a big scare, Robert E. Lee specifically, and he finds out that the Union Army is a lot closer than he thought they were. When Lee learns this, he decides to consolidate his army. And when you've got Confederates coming from there, and you've got Confederates coming from there, and you want to keep the Yankees on this side of the mountain, the eastern side of the mountain, how do you do that? You come to a central location and you threaten Washington, D.C. That Union Army will not allow should not allow a Confederate Army to get between them and the Capitol. That's the touchy point for the Abraham Lincoln and George Meade. So you come to Gettysburg. What Lee doesn't know is the vanguard, or one of the wings of the Union Army, is marching toward Gettysburg too. And so, like 2 prize fighters in a dark room, they're out there and they suddenly stumble into each other, and you got a conflagration going now, and all heck breaks loose. Can you imagine what would happen when these poor tourists came along and there was bullets flying around?
Get off the top.
Pulled up on the National Park Service Road. All you can eat, baby. You gotta be a football fan to know that. Alright. So, the Union and the Confederate Army, they bump into each other. The first Union troops that arrive on this field march behind this ridge line, following the toll road. They deploy on the north side of modern day 30, the Chambersburg Road back there. They get into a fight that's kind of beyond our bailiwick, but this is the initial fighting. The 2nd Brigade that comes up is the Iron Brigade, iron for you Yankees. It's going to come up over the crest of this ridge right here, and they're going to advance basically back behind you or to your right into those woods. In the midst of this fighting, ladies and gentlemen, where you see that monument right there, Major General John F. Reynolds is going to be mortally wounded, and he's going to fall from his horse. Now that's where we start getting into our story today. Now let me finish off this thread of the story. The Iron Brigade is successful in pushing the initial Confederate advance back through these woods and across the creek. Very successful actually, but General Reynolds goes down. Not that it has anything to do with the Iron Brigade, but that's how close he was up on the fighting line. You don't see major generals doing that very often. So, having said that, there is a lull in the fighting, and that's where we're going to pick up the narrative. In other words, there are Confederates sitting over there licking their wounds about a half mile to a mile in this direction. All right? And they are not very happy, but they have stumbled into the Union Army and they have been repulsed. Okay? Coming on behind these two Union brigades are more Union reinforcements. John Reynolds, even though he's dead, has ordered up the rest of the Union First Corps. The Union First Corps has a brigade in their command under General Rowley. When Reynolds goes down, that creates a bump in the chain of command, is what I'm getting to. I'm going to mention Rowley very little today. But how do we get from Rowley's? Why all the confusion, Matt? I get this question more often than not about this program. I'm only giving it one. Why is it Biddle and not Rowley? Well, out of 3 divisions in the First Corps, Abner Doubleday is the senior division commander. Corps, division, brigade, regiment. Regiment, brigade, division, corps. If your corps commander goes down, your senior division commander bumps up. Abner Doubleday is the senior division commander by rank, by date of commission, is how they determine that. Now, when he bumps up, that creates a domino effect. Rowley is the senior brigade commander in the 3rd Division. So, as a result, the senior brigade commander bumps up to division command, and the senior regimental commander jumps up to brigade command. Boom, 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 boom. Trickle effect as it goes up. So Doubleday is in command of the corps now, Rowley is in command of the division, and Biddle is in command of the brigade. And that's how we get to where we are on July 1st. And there's already been fighting, but Confederates are coming forward, Union is coming forward, they're consolidating their place, their pieces on the battlefield. Makes sense to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Or you wouldn't tell me anyway, breather. Okay. So.
Don't give them any quarter.
Don't give them any quarter.
Talking about that car.
Mm-hmm. Yep, 51st. If they knew that guy how much he drank, the guy following behind him may give him some quarter. He's local. Go ahead.
You just told us about the Union Army.
Yeah.
Who were the Confederates?
Oh, you want to know about them rebels? Okay, so that's a fair question. So the Confederate Army as a whole, I always like talking about the Confederates because, at least Army organization, because they're a whole lot easier to understand. The Confederate Army has 3 corps: corps, division, brigade, regiment. Corps, division, brigade, regiment, right? Pyramid. So the Confederate Army has 3 corps. Well, it's very easy. Each corps has 3 divisions. And each division has, approximately 4 brigades. That fluctuates. But usually about 4 brigades per division. And each brigade has about 4 regiments per brigade. That fluctuates too, but that's pretty much the average right there. So, A.P. Hill's Corps, Harry Heath's division, is coming down the Chambersburg Pike. And his objective is to come to Gettysburg. Now, one of the things that people probably don't put into the equation is that there is another Confederate division from A.P. Hill's Corps under Dorsey Pender right behind him. Let me put this into real numbers for you. There is 7,000 Confederate infantry coming down that turnpike right there, backed by 16 cannons. Behind them is another 7,000 Confederate soldiers, backed by 16 cannons, coming down the Chambersburg Pike. All right? You got, I don't care what's up front, you have 2 veteran divisions, combat infantry, in the vanguard of the Confederate Army. That's enough firepower to pick a fight with whoever you want to. This is called, when A.P. Hill calls a reconnaissance, boy, that's a reconnaissance. I don't know, when you shove 2/3 of your corps forward. But anyway, back to the original point. He has got somebody behind him. You and I don't think like that. But you want to torque an infantry commander. You don't clear the front. You don't want to be the logjam. You want to move, because you holding everybody up. You know, and it's hot and it's dusty, and there's nothing more that wears an infantryman down, I don't care what era it's from, than starting and stopping. An infantryman wants to move. He wants to get into a rhythm, into a stride. And when you're in, it's like sitting in a traffic jam for 2 hours. You know, it's not fun. It's just taxing after a while. Same effect on them. So he's got that pressure coming up from behind him. He's also under the impression that he doesn't have any Union forces and any significant Union forces in front of him. But when he gets up here, he can't figure out why this Union cavalry's being so obstinate with him. Well, they got to be doing something, but he keeps getting closer and closer to Gettysburg, and he doesn't see anything. And so he finally gets here to move us up to the narrative, and he can see Gettysburg. And so he just shakes out a battle line. We're going to drive them in. And that's what he proceeds to do. But at the last minute, that Union infantry shows up, which I've already told you about. And so he had a big surprise. And about the time during the lull in this fighting, Robert E. Lee personally comes through from Cashtown. He stops in Cashtown. He asks the Corps commander, his chief lieutenant, A.P. Hill, what's those guns up ahead? And A.P. Hill doesn't know. Man, I tell you what. He didn't blow his lid. That's not Lee's style right there. But man, can you imagine looking up at the old man on Traveler and telling him you don't know what's happening with your Corps up 5 miles ahead?
Were they still under orders not to engage at that point?
Yeah, and that's his problem. He's under orders not to bring on a general engagement until the army is consolidated. And when Lee gets from Cashtown to Harris Ridge over here, he pulls up and he's like, what part of do not bring on a general engagement until the army is consolidated? What part of that order was not clear? Yes. What did they say on the movie?
Boys got their dander up.
Situation is quite confused.
The situation is quite confused, General. General Heath, is there some way you may have misunderstood my orders? No, sir. Well, looks like it. I don't know. Looks like it to me. There seems to be a problem.
Seems though Reynolds wasn't listening to the orders.
Depends on who you read. The problem with judging Reynolds is everything, all of his intentions dies with him. And anything I could tell you about John F. Reynolds, anybody can tell you, is pure speculation. And I'll give you the number one question I'd like to ask you if I had a chance. Did he mean to hold here, or did he mean this for delaying action? I don't know. I mean, in other words, did he mean to hold Cemetery Hill? Yeah. So,
is there any speculation on why he was so close to the front of the battle lines?
Reynolds, if you look at his history, is always doing that. He's never where he's supposed to be. Okay, bless his heart. I mean, he's a good general, you know, and he's a fighting general, and I think a lot of his prowess, I doubt that. But as far as knowing where he should be, in other words, one word that will never be used with John F. Reynolds is coward. No, he ain't no coward. That's not what I'm insinuating. Well, it speaks for itself, you know. But like, for example, I believe at the Battle of Fredericksburg, they can't find him. You know, it's time for his boys to go forward. They can't find him. He's over here dinkering with the artillery, like helping shoot it. Like, what are you doing? You know, it's can't help himself. You know, he likes it. Seems to. Likes to hear that whistle. You know, some people are adrenaline junkies. Some people like killing. I'd say that's few and far between, but some people like it. Some people like war. It's a small minority, but some people thrive in it. What's up there? Better not be no rare bird. All right, let's get back to the narrative. We're never going to get this done. So, rest of the First Corps arrives. So Rowley bumps up. He was the regimental commander. The brigade commander. He bumps up to division. Chapman Biddle was the regimental commander of the 121st Pennsylvania. He bumps up to brigade. So the rest of the men start filing in. So initially, Doubleday's division arrives. This is after this fighting is over, according to the 20th New York history, at 11:15, along with Robinson's division, and took position behind Seminary Ridge. So when you go, one of the great green spaces that is underappreciated in this city is the backside of seminary, of the Lutheran Seminary. All that green space. I can't tell you how blessed we are to still have that, that the seminary preserved that. So anyway, you take away some of those houses and you open up those fields, and they park 2 divisions back there. Crammed them in. Now they're probably in column. Don't picture them as being, they would be ready to move forward. In other words, they'd be stacked going this way, not this way, but this way, in column. So you could line those brigades up and get them going. Initially, Rowley's brigade deployed in the woods along Hagerstown Road. What I think they mean is that intersection somewhere around there probably took up a lot of space. So let's just make it a broad stroke right here. I think it's somewhere around the intersection with where the red light is between Seminary Avenue and West Confederate. Somewhere in that area. Now, they initially go up there, and that's probably just to get them some shade. Now, this is beyond my, I couldn't command a regiment, all right? I don't know Hardy's tactics. But it says, quote, they deployed with their right towards Willoughby Run, the Ulster Guard on the left. That's the 20th New York. This is from their regimental history. The brigade then advanced some 200 or 300 feet through the woods on the north side of the road. That would be this side if they mean the Hagerstown Road. When it was faced by the right flank and moved through the fields towards Gettysburg, crossing Willoughby Run between the road and the house of D. Finfrock, around which Buford's dismounted cavalry were skirmishing. In other words, I think they were basically out there where the tour road starts. Somewhere in that general vicinity as they're coming up through here. When the brigade reached the foot of the ridge east of Willoughby Run, it filed to the left and took position in line of battle on the slope of the ridge and nearly opposite the seminary. Now, a lot of you that are new to the battlefield probably think that the steeple is the seminary. No, the original seminary is the cupola with the green dome on it. The church was not here in 1863. You have to keep that in mind. That's the cupola from Reynolds and Buford. Okay, the green cupola. The steeple was not here. All right, so they line up opposite the seminary. Well, there's the original seminary right there. So we're talking about a little bit further down. Facing west. 10 minutes later, the brigade was ordered to advance over the ridge and down into the ravine through which Willoughby Run flows to the right of the brigade, passing near the grove where General Reynolds fell. I'll hike y'all up there in just a minute. We'll go by there on the way over there. Along the top of the ridge on the opposite side of the run was a fence, and a field beyond it was covered with grain. Well, let's just go over here and we can see it. Any questions before we move out?
What size was Biddle's brigade? How many people were in it at that point?
You give me a second and I'll give you the whole thing.
Okay.
263 and 121st Pennsylvania. I'll repeat this for y'all. 20th New York, 287, 142nd, 336, and I haven't got 151st. I've got that later. I think that's around 400.
About 1,000.
So more than 1,000.
Yeah, more than 1,000.
More than 1,000, like 1,200.
Like 1,200.
Yeah.
When Reynolds falls, how is that communicated, that bump up in chain of command?
Well, let me tell you what's communicated. I don't know. Now, the one thing I don't have out here today, and I hope you haven't seen it, is as I said earlier, I did this for the anniversary. For the anniversary, I had Scott Hartwig and John Heiser, our former historians, come out and say something about the Harvest of Death photo, and we'll get around to that later. But one thing that Scott said during the program, which I wish to reiterate, is Reynolds' death the news of Reynolds' death flew through the Union Army like electricity. I mean, you see this repeated over and over and over again, and people taking notes at the time. General Reynolds has been killed. General Reynolds has been killed. This is a well-known fact.
Is that because the news spread so fast because he was so well respected?
The news, well, yeah, the news spreads because he's a big dog. You know, he's the first Corps commander. I don't get into this with people, but he's actually the wing commander. I'll leave y'all to go research that because it's not about Reynolds, but I mean, Meade trusts him so much to place 3 Corps under his command. And that's how the 11th Corps gets here. Reynolds tells them to come up,
So
and
the
they do it.
The closest counterpart on the Confederate side would be who? Longstreet? Yeah. Wow.
Well, the Union Army has 7 Corps.
Right.
Now, they're not, the Confederate Army has 3. The Union Army ranged from 8 to 14,000 men apiece in their corps. The Confederate Army usually averaging about 20, somewhere in there. So 3 corps, bigger corps in the Confederate Army. You just have to work it out in your own mind. There's pros and cons to everything. I could see smaller corps. I could see bigger corps. I mean, I could argue it both ways, you know.
So where did the Corps commander, when Reynolds fell, he was on the front line. Where did Riddle command from?
Where did who?
Riddle? Is it that moved up to Corps?
Biddle. Oh, Biddle. Well, let's get into the walk. We'll get into the tactical situation.
double day.
Anything else about the big picture? It'll make better sense, sir. I'm not cutting you off. It'll make better sense once you can see it. I think it'll make better sense. Now, one thing that I don't want you, and that's your confusion, I think, sir. I haven't taken you there. One thing I want to point out before we leave is, excuse me, is Rowley's division has 2 brigades up, Stone and Biddle. Well, Stone's brigade goes over there, where you see the highway. We're not going to concentrate on them. So what I'm trying to show you is what Rowley is up against as far as his division. He's got one command over there by the McPherson barn, and his other command is down here by these monuments. And in between, he's got a command that's not under his, you know, division, and that is the Iron Brigade, who's still in the woods. I would also point out to you that when you go down, I'm talking to you big Gettysburg buffs now, when you drive through Meredith Avenue and you see the monuments down in the woods, always remember that the monuments in there, ladies and gentlemen, are not to the initial advance. The monuments are to the lull in the fighting when they switch units around. They're not in other words, they're not in the same order that they advanced initially. If I was giving the test, I would probably want that question on there. However, I'm not giving the test.
So Matt, how certain is that monument to the site where he was killed?
It is as certain as we gonna get. This is all we gonna do. That's all we gonna do. And I want to tell y'all something else about Armistead. If y'all got a better idea, I'm all ears. Okay? But that's where the vets put it, and that's where it happened. Right? It's just like 147 cannon, right? You can sit out there and you can argue it all day, but it's 147 guns on Robert E. Lee's line on July 3rd. 147. That's what Scott Hartwig said. That's what it is. Okay?
Self-sighted.
Self-sighted, self-fire remote with the Confederates in the back smoking cigars. Saying, I sure do like a good barrage. What else we got? Let's move on out. We're going to go through this field, this cut path, I should say. We're going to go out through this cut path, and we're basically going to go over to the road tomorrow. While the people are coming up, I'll tell you a story. A.P. Hill, you know, everybody knows A.P. Hill had a little problem. Medical issue. He before the war, he was courting this woman named Marcy. Ellen, I believe her name was Ellen Marcy. And she's a beaut. I don't, you know, get goggle-eyed over movie stars or, you know, people that are, you know, obviously not going to knock on my door. We all have to come back to, you know, just settling for the t-shirt. But yeah, she's pretty. She's very pretty, and I don't say that lightly. She ends up marrying George McClellan, and Confederate soldiers, A.P. Hill locks horns with George McClellan outside of Richmond in the 7 Days battle. I believe Savage Station, Beaver Dam Creek, I don't know, I'm rusty on my 7 day. But one of those initial actions. Anyway, A.P. Hill jumps the gun, attacks head on. These Confederate soldiers are getting slaughtered out in this swamp out there. And the cry was heard above the gunfire from the Confederate soldiers. Oh, Miss Marcy. Oh, Miss Marcy. Why didn't you marry? Yeah. You like that, huh? Yeah. There you go. Yeah, A.P. Hill. He didn't like that. Actually, the letters, I don't want to get off on him, but actually the letters survive from his letter to her father proclaiming his innocence still survives under the circumstances. And the way he puts it is in the language of a gentleman. You really have to read between the lines. Anyway, her father was a career military officer too. So, I mean, it was, you know, Army's a small place once you get into it. All right. So where was I? I was talking about later. 10 minutes later, the brigade was ordered to advance over the ridge. Well, there it is. There's your ridge, right there. And down into the ravine through which Willoughby Run flows to the right of the brigade, passing near the grove where General Reynolds fell. Well, here you go, right in front of you. So if you can imagine, before all this fighting, this is a lull in the fighting, a whole brigade of Union infantry pops over this ridge. It's been right in front of you, ladies and gentlemen, marching in formation, and they proceed down to the ravine. Now you got to take away, I take it for granted that these woods were much thinner. You could see on the other side, all right? You could see the fields, all right? That's why it's not going to make sense. Behind those trees is where I'm about to talk about, but it was open back then. Today we keep them up as a view shed blocker, you know? I mean, we got modern neighborhoods over there. Anyway, it's a trade-off. So anyway, along the top of the ridge and on the opposite side of the run was a fence, and the field beyond it was covered with grain, affording excellent shelter for the enemy's sharpshooters. So you got grain that's, you know, yay high, you just get down in it. And, you know, oh, Matt, oh, yeah, well, that's not that good. I had it done to me, or shown to me, at Bryce's Crossroads in Mississippi. I had a gentleman, retired Army general named Parker Hills, leading a tour. And he had some of his soldiers out in the middle of that field that we didn't know. And all of a sudden, he's leading the group across the field, and they pop up out of that tall grass. And we didn't know they were there. Oh yeah, you can get down in that wheat if you don't know where they are. Now that wheat's not much for protection now, but it'll do some hiding. I don't know how many bullets it's gonna stop, but it sure feels like it anyway, right? God only knows. All right, so it afforded excellent shelter for the enemy sharpshooters, and the field was alive with them. In this ravine, the brigade found itself under a hot infantry fire and was unable to see the enemy from whom the fire came, and did not attempt to reply to it. It is not probable that anyone knew just why the brigade was sent down into that valley, and it was soon ordered back over the ridge to the position from which it last marched. Okay? The Ulster Guard, 20th New York, was then directed to take position on top of the ridge, whither it marched and halted, remaining there in line of battle and receiving an occasional shot from the grain field across beyond Willoughby Run. Okay, so there are two trains of thought on this. When I first came, I didn't say either on the first program on July 1st. There are two trains of thought on this. The first one that I was going to come out here and say, and this is what the veterans are hinting at in the post-war writings, is that the reason they're down there on Willoughby Run is they've got a drunk division commander, you know, that marches them down to the creek line and so forth, and they think that because of his incompetence is the reason they're getting shot for nothing down there, you know, by these sharpshooters that are plinking away with it. However, I read somebody else's account, and this seems more plausible to me. If you know, ladies and gentlemen, and some of you do, that the Iron Brigade is in these woods, I already talked about the monument. This is also plausible. Doesn't it seem likely that they just wanted to prolong Biddle's line, or Rowley's old brigade line, and use Willoughby Run as a barrier, if you will. Abattis, for lack of a better word, obstruction. And so, you know, that makes sense also. But it can't be held because the ground on the other side of the creek is higher than the position they are ordered to occupy. So the rebels are shooting down at them through this wheat, which, you know, you can't see them. So anyway, they go back over the ridge. I don't know how many people get killed. Not a lot. Like we're about to happen. That's why they don't write about it. But you don't want that. Really, think about if you're in a 30-man company and you lose a man. I mean, you know this guy. I mean, you've been with this guy for 2 years and he gets shot over that, man. That's what ticks a soldier off right there. Man, you got to get your act together. Anyway, that's the fate of a soldier. Now, apparently Division Commander Wadsworth wanted the brigade to extend the Iron Brigade line to the left of the 19th Indiana. Now, who put them into place, whether it was Wadsworth or Rowley or Biddle, I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about briefly the fighting that's on the other side. About 10 minutes after arriving, Wadsworth rode up himself and ordered the 20th New York to advance a company of skirmishers to a farm that was across the creek and drive out the enemy. Colonel Gates would later claim that his two companies were able to hold the Harmon farm, but the buildings would later be burned. That's why they don't stand there today. Now, I don't know, a gentleman in between stops here, we didn't pick it up on tape, was telling me that the Harmon farm was stone built, and it was 2 to 3 stories high. I don't know what the top of it was like, but I take it had a good view shed, because the women up there claim to have seen the 11th Corps marching in. Don't know if they saw what they thought they saw. Maybe they saw Robinson's division, but if they did, if they saw the 11th Corps, that'd be way up there, you know. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, nice house. I hate to say it though, y'all all concentrate. I think we lose sight of this at Gettysburg. You know, in fact, we're going into the aftermath and we're going to focus on the impact of the battle on the civilians. Well, you know, there's always, you know, your reality and somebody else's reality, right? I spent a lot of money to figure that out, right? Sitting there in a hard plastic chair. That somebody else's reality has no direct bearing on your reality. Think about Vicksburg. You know, now there's a civilian under strain to me. You know, when you're getting shelled 24 hours a day and you can't go anywhere, that's a little bit worse. Anyway, don't get me on my soapbox. Stop it. Stop talking to me. No, I'm going to finish the program. I know. We'll get French fries later. Only you would appreciate that. Oh, let me tell you. Well, I'll tell y'all in between stops. I'll give you some. I'll give you some in between when we get ready to go. Remind me. And I'll tell y'all something. I got to give you the highlight of the anniversary. All right. So, the brigade is facing this way. I have a single kid out here. Come on out here. You gonna leave the backpack on or not?
Sure.
All right. Come on out here. Stone's brigade is going to be, Rowley's brigade or Biddle's brigade is going to be facing this way. All right, let's have you step right out here. Actually, give me a little more room for Stuffy over here. And if you come out there, Jedi Master. Now, if she's facing this way, she represents Robert Rhodes' new Confederate division, who comes out at stop number 2 at the Peace Light. Right? So what is the problem? If Rhodes is deploying, I don't know how far that is, let's say almost a mile over there. If he's deploying his artillery here and Biddle's brigade is facing this way, what is the problem for Biddle's brigade?
Enfilade fire.
Enfilade, point at her. All right, when she fires this way, if she misses, the shots will ricochet down the line. So what does Biddle do? Rowley, he turns the brigade this way. So when you're facing this way, ladies and gentlemen, think about it. You may hit me with a cannonball, but how many people are you going to kill if you overshoot, right? In other words, it's harder to hit me because you're not at right angles. It's like enfilade or a plus sign. You want an equal sign when you're lined up against artillery. You know, I just thought of that. The equal and the plus sign. I think I'm going to keep that. Did you put that down? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So what they're doing is she shifts to the north. In other words, those Union troops on the other side of the ridge would deploy this way in order to minimize casualties. Now, let me rehash. The Confederates attack around 10 o'clock in the morning. They are repulsed by the Iron Brigade over here. Around, I don't know, 12:30, 1 o'clock, maybe a little longer, the Confederates launch a second attack. So when they start to attack, the main Confederate threat is coming from here. So what Biddle does, Biddle does is turns to face the Confederate threat at the last minute. So I don't know how they do that maneuvering, but they get that whole brigade to face about and to come up to the top of the ridge. Trying to keep y'all in here. 11th Corps deploys shortly thereafter around 12:30, and around 20 minutes later, according to the 20th New York, Early's division arrives on the Harrisburg Road. That is Confederates that I'm talking about. All right, so now here come the Confederates. Now the Confederates that are coming across through here, ladies and gentlemen, are under the command of James J. Pettigrew. And an average regiment here at Gettysburg is about 300 men. These North Carolinians that are coming toward, please don't stay in the sun, I'm sorry, before you go. Thank y'all very much, I'm sorry. Always reminds me of Tombstone, you know. Johnny Tyler, where are you going with that shotgun? Madcap. The North Carolinians have not been engaged in combat, significant combat. And a 300-man regiment that's here at Gettysburg, they're twice that size. The 26th North Carolina, which is one of 4 regiments in that brigade, is over 800 by itself. Now the rest of them are, you know, the 52nd, 47th are like over around 500. These are huge. I mean, what did we say? Who did the math on Biddle's brigade? How many we got?
1,200.
Right. Now, first thing you need to know is, as far as going into this combat, Doubleday, now the Corps commander, has no reserves left. Robinson's division, which was part behind here, has been moved out to the first day's observation tower. That short tower by the peace light. That's where it's at right there, okay? So that reserve is gone to extend the line. The 11th Corps was supposed to extend the line on the other side of Robinson, but they didn't make it in time. Early's division, Rhodes' division arrived a few minutes before, and they block them off. So now you have Federals in the 1st Corps line this way, and you have the 11th Corps line, instead of facing this way, they're at right angles, facing north. That's the scene as the Confederates start to mount their 3rd attack, or what I call the 3rd attack. Heath first, Rhodes the 2nd, and then they all attack together in the afternoon. That's what these Union are up. Now, back to the original point. There are 4 regiments in Biddle's brigade. 3 of them are sent to the front, and that's what we're going to walk out in the sun and go down and show you the monuments, show you the field of fire which they're coming from, and then try to get back in this shade, all right? The only reserve that this division has at this time is the 151st, which is placed over here by the seminary. 4 regiments in the brigade, only 3 of them advance out to the ridge. That 400, that largest regiment, is still back here. There is also, I would point out before we leave this area, I'm going into the weeds because I got a smaller group now than I did on the anniversary. There is a gap now between the line of Meredith's left flank and Biddle's right flank. There is a gap which we are now in right now. And the Confederates are coming. And there's a lot more of them. Any questions? Babcock. Sounds like a charming place. To your health. All right. Well, why don't we do this? I want to kill the guy's crops more than I have to, all right? So why don't we make a beeline down the edge of this field, and why don't we do this with how many have I got? I don't know. Let's, I can't tell. This is my problem. If I take y'all on the right side of the road, I don't think you're going to have enough room to face me. So let's cross between those 2 trucks and let's see what we can get on the reverse side. We'll just have to take it from the Union position. I bet that thing will make time on this asphalt now. You know, they took my daddy's away. He had the driving test, and he didn't. And my brother knows the guy that sells them things, and he can get it. He's got the chip. You want to do wheelies on that thing. We charge this sucker every night, all night. If you want to get in the 4-lane traffic, you talk to my brother's friend. He'll get you out there.
You wouldn't give me a ride. I'm upset.
Oh, no.
Matt, this is a shell?
Yep, that's the shell bursting over. I'd have to look up if there was any special meaning to it. And what's the circle underneath for the gentleman? What's that big circle for?
First Corps.
Is that the Corps?
That is the 1st Corps symbol. That's right. Well, you'll be happy to know we're not going any further. Right out here. Lean on me when there's a rock in my shoe and you're not strong. I'll be happy to lean on you.
I remember that part.
Uh-oh. I just can't get away from him.
Uh-oh. Your parole officer?
No, I ain't parole. No, he's
You know him too well.
township. I tell you what though, I told him the cages rattle too much. You know, in the back you can't hear it.
Too much kicking in the back.
And you fell asleep, huh?
There he is.
You turned uncomfortable in the back.
How y'all doing? Yeah, I don't do that. Hopefully. Surely I've learned. All right. When Heath advances, Biddle changes from north to west. I've said that. His line contains the 121st Pennsylvania on the right. That happens to be right here where we are, okay? Excuse me, the left, I should say. All right, so that's 263 men. So I don't know if these are accurate, but now let's take a look at it. There's the flank marker, and there's the flank marker. Now, folks, this may be, I do not personally, this is just personal opinion, and you're welcome to disagree. I don't put too much faith in flank markers here at Gettysburg. They're just, a lot of times, you know, there was multiple units on the line and they're putting the monuments up there, and they don't want, these veterans don't want your flank marker in their territory. So maybe there's an exception, but it is a general rule of thumb that flank markers don't overlap each other, right? And so I think they're shortened as a result of the monument placement, I should say. Now, getting to the point, there's no traffic out here. It's the only unit that fights out here. Now, I would think if you're going to have accurate flank markers, this might be the exception, right through here. Because it's the only thing out here. They've got plenty of room. So, this is your front. 263 men. Why is 260 men not longer? Because 260 men aren't in double ranks. I'd have to look at it, but you're probably looking at, you know, I don't know, probably 200. By the time you subtract everybody, put the file closers in there, take the stretcher bearers out, whoever else is not in there, you know. What do they have on the firing line? Nope. Not real Harley drivers. Got a helmet on. Nope. They're faking it. No. They're not living with the wind in their face. You know how you can tell a real biker, don't you?
Friendly people.
Real biker can't look at you straight. Always look at you like this. They've been riding in the wind. Huh? They don't look straight ahead. Oh, watch. I teach you all kinds of stuff. So 121st Pennsylvania on the left, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Biddle. Not to be confused with Chapman. And next in line, we'll get to them eventually, the next monument, you've already passed it, is the 20th New York, 287 men. And then they are followed by Breck's Cannons, Reynolds or Breck's Cannons, 1st New York Light Artillery, 2 sections, that means 4 guns. And then the 142nd Pennsylvania, which we've passed, we'll get back to them, which is 336 men. So all in all, there's about 900 men in 3 regiments along this ridge, placed along through here. Now originally, look at where they are. They're in defilade. When the Confederates start advancing, Pettigrew's brigade starts advancing. He's got the 47th North Carolina directly in front of him and the 52nd North Carolina right over here to rehash about 500 men apiece. As they're moving across this field right here, it doesn't take rocket science to figure out that if that flank marker is the end of the Union line on this ridge and the Confederates stretch to the Hagerstown Road, then you might eventually have a problem with this line. And these veteran Union infantry know when they step up on the ridge and they can see that Confederate battle line. And that's just half of Pettigrew's brigade. His other half, the 11th and the 26th, stretch on into the woods. You could have seen a portion of the 11th coming up in that swale that we just stopped at before. I mean, all you see is massive, ladies and gentlemen. Massive. Y'all step off the road. We'll avoid this fight before we start. This is a massive line of Confederate infantry as they come on up. Right through here. Oh, that's not a cop. Don't worry about it. And plus, they've got artillery. Now, once again, Biddle's line falls short by 400 yards reaching the Hagerstown Road. Pettigrew has got 2,500 men in his line. All right, so let's get it going. The 256 men of the 121st Pennsylvania opened on the 52nd North Carolina. They come up on here and they're shooting. Picture it. How many yards, how many hundreds of yards you think it is, that tree line?
300.
All right, I don't want a fight starting around here. But they're well within range. Okay, 400 yards would be the maximum range they usually say they could shoot these rifle muskets. They open up with that rifle muskets and they start shooting. Now, how many they could hit, I don't know. But, you know, the closer they get, the more accurate they become. Those Confederates and those butternut outfits come out of that line right there. All right, so soon the North Carolinians wrap around the flank of the Pennsylvanians and deliver, quote unquote, a crushing fire. Biddle attempted to change front, but the, quote, the ranks were broken and became massed together during the movement. The survivors broke for the seminary, and Sergeant Charles Atlee from the 121st later said the way the men moved to the seminary was, quote, was remarkable, probably the best on record. I think he meant that seriously the more I read it, but I don't know how he meant that. Union artillery does not stand to the last. Breck's guns are going to start to limber to the rear as Pettigrew advances. All right, so next in line, as the North Carolinians come around the corner right through here and unravel the 121st Pennsylvania, look at where they're going. Look at where the North Carolinians are, and look at where they're going. Why don't we do? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
They didn't have enough men, I guess, to try to refuse, or
they did try to refuse. Let's walk out here in this field since we got the opportunity. You come on up there, Foundation. Now, I had this thing for the anniversary and I didn't even use it because I forgot it. And we didn't end up using it, but John brought his book out. It all worked out in the end, but this thing works here. But is this thing sealed? Putting it in my pocket. Do not write me letters about being trashy. All right? Let me try to line up. Y'all might be better if you slid over to the left. Now, I'm not telling you, ladies and gentlemen, this is the exact spot. All right? I don't know. It may be back behind you. It may be in front of you. I don't know if this is the exact spot, but we're near it. According to John Heiser and Scott Hartwick, this is where they believe. This is not my research. I know very little about photographs. Okay, so, but anyway, that's what they're thinking when they get the wood line out through here. Now, that may have been further out in the field, but basically, you see the outline, see around the... Now that's why they believe. Now this may be, is the reason I'm stopping here, this may be the 121st Pennsylvania. All right, welcome to Battle of Gettysburg. Go ahead.
There's only one man that's going to confirm that, and that's Frazanito.
Frazanito? People, I just mean this in general, and I can say this for myself, all right? Some people, just in general, I don't like other people discovering things before I do. That can lead to a real problem. But yes, this is one of the, once again, I am not a picture expert, so I'm not out here to argue the merits or the dismerits. But I can tell you that this is one of the pictures from Fresnito's book that he was unable to locate the exact position. All right. So Mr. Fresnito does not, I do not believe, I have not asked him, but I don't think he agrees with it. All right. I just thought it would be cool. Anybody want to see?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do
All
they
right.
know when the picture was taken? That
Oh, you want?
day after?
You hold it. You're gonna be Vanna.
Matt,
Yes.
do they know when the picture was taken?
They think. What did Johnny say? July 5th.
July
Yes.
5th.
July 5th.
Yeah.
And the reason he says that is because the Union dead were not buried yet. The Confederates buried their dead and left the Union out here. All right, because they didn't know how long the battle was going to last. So it's part of their claim as to being the first day's battlefield, ladies and gentlemen, is that there were still Union dead out here by the time the photographers got here. In fact, if you look in the burial party, at the picture, there's two pictures from the set. Some of them show, one of them shows the burial party that are getting ready to dig. And you know that the Confederates would have to be out of this area before they could, the Union burial parties could get here. So I'm not saying that that's the slam dunk right there, but that's part of it. There's also the theory they have, and I wish they were here to explain it, is that the photographer that got jammed up, one of those photographers got jammed up in the Army traffic, the wagon trains back there, so he took the point of least resistance, which turned out to get him onto the Hagerstown Road coming into Gettysburg. And once again, as part of their theory, to go back to what I said earlier, it was very, very, very widely known within the Union Army, and especially by July 5th, that John Reynolds was dead. If you get to the battlefield and you have no national park, and you have no history books, and you have no idea what happened here, wouldn't you want to go to that one spot? If you're looking to sell pictures, if I'm in the North and I want to sell a picture, what do I want a picture of? I want a picture of Reynolds. Where's his death site, wounding site? So, you know, that's another layer. Is it all like overwhelming? No. You know, we could still turn out to be wrong, but you know, I haven't seen anybody else come up with anything better, so you know, so that's not a thing. I mean, you know, it's one thing to criticize. I hate people who criticize. Don't give me another. Well, give me a solution then. I know what's wrong with it, but you tell me what's your idea, you know?
Well, then July 5th would have been a Sunday, right?
Somebody help me. Friday was the third one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's a Sunday. So being a Sunday, would that have impacted their burial assignments or anything? Would they have taken a day of off or Sabbath? Or...
Sir, we are talking about the Union Army.
Okay.
We are not talking about Christian people.
Good point.
Nice.
Yes. Oh, you got that one out. Very good.
Now over here on the Confederate side, now there was widespread evangelism going on. There's souls to be saved.
Gotcha.
But no, Billy Graham's ancestor wasn't in the Union Army. All right, why don't we do this? Let's I don't want to walk through the field, even though it'd be cool. I don't want to kill the guy's crop. Let's go back to the grass over here, and let's get back, and we're just going to make our way back to the to where we started. Let's all make our way down to that next monument, and we'll stop there. Get to the bars, just getting out of the bar.
My headlight went out on the bike, and I forgot they blocked off the road, the driveway up to Tawnytown.
Oh, you're just trying to do evil Knievel. Let me tell you a story while we're waiting on everybody here. Though. Have one of the maintenance guys make you feel better about yourself. Have one of the maintenance guys tell me that, you know, where you wrecked your bike in the parking lot there.
Yeah.
Dude, this guy says he's coming in to work. This maintenance guy's coming in to work early, and he looks over to his right. You You know, he's leaving town on the Tawnytown Road, and there's this smoking hulk of a car laying up against right below the parking lot to the mine, you know. He's smoking, and he looks to his right, and he goes, well, that's interesting. And he looks to his left, and the cemetery wall, you know, that stone? You know, we have those, I don't know what you call them, but sets, the large stone, capstones on the top of it. Some car had cleared Cemetery Hill. You know that crosswalk where the yield is? Had hit the side of the wall, hit the top of the wall, raked off a couple of those capstones, went over on its side and went across the street and landed up in the below the mine parking lot, you know, south side of it.
Wow.
How do we miss those?
So I'm driving home to Cashtown one night after sitting on a hard plastic chair for like 3 hours, courtesy of the Commonwealth. And so I'm driving home, me and Dan driving home back to Cashtown. He's driving me home, and this car in front of us keeps weaving. You know, we were like, we got into it with him, you know. Whoa, come on now, bring it back over. Come on now, you can get it between that yellow and that white now. We're getting behind, we're going to give him an escort home. You know, we're going to shepherd him on to the house. We get down there around 7 Stars where that railroad track is. The people living out there, you might be wondering why this happened. Well, this stuff was in your front yard. Well, I know why that stuff was in your front yard because I was there. So anyway, we're watching this car, and I says, now slow down, Dan. I said, slow down, it's going to go off the road now. And the car was veering toward this light pole that was coming up, and it appeared to me that whoever was in that car was distracted or asleep, because they came to or whatever, and they corrected it. Right when you wake up and you see a light pole coming, it's time, you know, to take action. So if possible, so they corrected it, went back in the street into the highway. Well, when they went back in the highway, they corrected it again, you know, brought it back over the yellow line. That's when they lost it. And it was just like watching one of them cop videos, you know. They went over this embankment. They missed the light pole. They went over this embankment. You know how on the cop videos, the car goes up in the air and dust goes everywhere? It's exactly what happened. Man, this car hit this embankment. Dust parts are going everywhere. I'm like, wow. I said, slow down, Dan. They're going to come back on the road, man. You don't know which way they're going to come out when they come back on the road, because they hauling butt, man. Anyway, they hit that embankment. Boom! They hit the other side. And this is only, you know, the Lord only keeps up with, takes pity on drunkards in the United States of America. So I said, pull on over. They finally got the car to arrest on an old section of 30. Old 30 was sitting right there in this guy's driveway, and they hit it, went over that embankment, ended up on asphalt, and were able to stop that car. And my God, you couldn't have planned that. Went between 2 poles to do it, you know what I'm saying? You can't, you know. So anyway, I told Dan, pull on over. So I get out of the car, you know, they're sitting there, the car, you know, smoke coming out of it. I mean, there's various parts of the car laying there, and I went up to the window, and there was two ladies in there, and I said, looks like you ladies went for a little ride tonight. And she looks up at me and she goes, we're not far from home. I said, well, you may not be far from home, but you've got significant damage here. She goes, no, sir. That happened last night. I said, no, sir. I said, I don't know what happened last night, but the bottom of your car is hanging out the front. The frame of your car, your headlights are up now, right? You know, it bent the molding up where the headlights, instead of going, you know, they were like that, you know. I mean, they took a lick when they went across there, you know. I said, I think y'all ought to call somebody. No, we're leaving. I said, well, I don't think you can drive this thing. I don't think it's drivable. We're leaving. Well, okay, you know, what am I going to do? I mean, you know, I'm not a cop or anything, you know, get involved. So what do? I went out there and stopped traffic. Told them, y'all hang on a minute. Let me get you down there and let's see if we can get you back out on the road here. And it sounded like a log truck when they got it back out there. I tore the muffler out the bottom of it. Some part of the exhaust system, blah, 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 blah. This little four cylinder sounded like an old log truck. Anyway, we got up in behind them, sparks going, you know, dragging the plastic under molding under the car. They busted they had to bust the struts on it when they hit it that hard. The car's leaning, you know, you hear metal grinding on metal, you know. And we got to the first house and they put the brake lights on. And we got to the second house and they put the brake lights on. I said, Dan, they gonna find it eventually. But that third or fourth house they pulled in there. Yeah. We drove on past. And I figured I'd done my good Samaritan for the day. That's the power of an American car right there. Some people just get, I don't know. I hope they made it. So if y'all watching this tape, I prayed for y'all. You know, I'd left too though, if I'd could. Plenty of nights I wish I could have. All right, let me quote here from the 20th New York, which is the monument, which is right behind the camera right now, right in front of you. Quote unquote, the enemy were moving down the Hagerstown Road and would soon have turned our flank and taken the brigade in reverse. It was almost as dangerous to remain, for we were now receiving a fire on both flanks as well as in front. But to remain was to be captured, and pouring a volley into the enemy as they came rushing up the slope in front, and at short range the order to retreat was given. So look at it. North Carolinians coming around the crest of that ridge right there. That's where the gentleman in that truck down there, that's where we just were. Look at where those North Carolinians are coming around, and it's just coming loose like a threads on a seam, right? And it's just unraveling on them. Colonel Gates later claimed to have taken the regimental colors made by the women from Saugerties. I almost got it this time. And then hoisted them over his shoulder, quote, and called upon his men to stand by them. What do you think those women did when they left? You stood in front, 1,000 men stood at the train station. These women who had handmade this flag had presents it to you. And what do you pledge when they hand that flag over? You pledge your honor, you pledge to defend the flag and so forth. That's a big deal. You wouldn't want to lose that. Now, am I going to get killed over it? I don't know. That's all a personal decision. I'm 53. They're not. Okay? They might. Now, Gates claimed that he controlled the two left regiments. What does he mean by that? He claimed to have controlled the 20th and the 121st. And Biddle the two right. That is plausible. That is plausible that Gates could have been in command to half of it for command and control. However, if you read the 20th New York regimental history, which does have a lot of strengths to it, which includes times that they put in there, which I think he got from one of the early battles of the histories of the battle, but which is a straight. But Gates to me seems like, if you read it, you know, he seems like he likes himself a lot. So I treat the passages concerning him very gently, you know, because if you're truly in it, you know, most Medal of Honor winners don't talk about it. There's your hero. You probably knew, some of you older people probably knew your parents or your grandparents from World War II. And what did they not do? They didn't talk about it. That's why they don't talk about it. So anyway, Gates claimed, seeing this, he also claims the right wing fell back first. Well, of course it did. Seeing this, Gates claims he returned the colors and told the two units to fall back, these two units, while, quote, losing no prisoners except for the wounded. That could be true. All right? If I was given an order to have a change of base, I will comply with that order very quickly. And in other words, I could beat every one of you. I don't care how young you are. I guarantee you, if I had somebody shooting at me, I can beat you to that seminary. If that is the goal. If it's between me and you, I will beat you. Okay? All right, and that's bona fide. Okay. Beyond a doubt, Union soldiers across this ridge could see the Confederate line outdistanced. And Colonel Wainwright of the Union First Corps staff officer thought that Pettigrew's advancing battle line was at least a half-mile long, 2,500 men in it. All right, so let's face about, if it could. Let me get back out here. Why don't we do this? Y'all just come back. If you take a few steps back, we're not moving. If just face this way so you can see the North Carolinians. Right back here. You're fine.
I'm fine.
You're not bothering me.
All right.
You can come on up, you can do whatever you like, but look, one trick, old Ranger trick, whatever which way the wind is blowing, don't hold it toward the wind, hold it at right angles, see, and hold it against your body, and see, you don't have to use your muscles all the time, use your weight as it goes beyond. Stuffy, we might as well get her on here. What's your name?
All right.
Braylon.
Braylon, and where are you from, Braylon? Ephrata? Okay, and how's Ephrata these days? Good. They are? Well, thank you for carrying that picture for me. You a big Civil War buff? Oh, good. All right, what's your favorite part?
Just the history of it.
Oh, well, don't make it too narrow. Okay, right there. Well, please, what grade are you in?
I'm going into 7th.
Wow. Wow, I bet you get that reaction a lot, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Are you allowed to wear crop tops?
No.
Me neither. But my daughters want to wear crop tops. They're only 9, and I just don't think that's appropriate. No, I don't think so either. Right there. But they said, Dad, you wear crop tops, and I said, no, I do not wear crop tops. I wear T-shirts that do not fit. You write that
nice.
One down. All right. So the reason I faced you about 47th North Carolina is coming directly toward us. I really like, and I think it should be, if you're building a Civil War, and I'm not saying that if you only gonna get 10 books, don't go out and get these, all right? But if your spouse allows you more books than is possibly able to read in one lifetime, I do recommend the 5-volume Clark's North Carolina Regiments and Battalions. They are written by the veterans. They were reprinted by Broadfoot. I don't know if it's been reprinted since then, but anyway, John Thorpe writes the regimental history of the 47th. He is from Company A, and this is who is speaking here. Quote, the morale of the unit was splendid, and when it advanced to its first grand charge, it was with the feeling of conquerors. They'd never been in combat. We were met by a furious storm of shells and canister, and further on by the more destructive rifles of the 2 Army Corps confronting us. One shell struck the right company, killing 3 men and exploding in the line of file closers. By the concussion, fell to the earth, every one of them. So 3 men get killed and the explosion knocked down the rest of the company. The other companies were faring no better. Still our line without a murmur advanced, delivering its steady fire. They're coming right toward us. Amid the rebel yells, and closed with the first line of the enemy. After a desperate struggle, this yielded, and the second line was met and quickly broken to pieces. What I think they mean by the second line is either them trying to reform out here, we'll get back to that in a minute, or he means by the seminary. Now he's an old man when he's writing this. All right, when they turn these books out. So you have to, as a historian, you have to allow a bit of a distance between the two, right? How many encores did Hank Williams play at the Opry of Lovesick Blues? Well, you know, people's memory. You're never gonna know. Was it 5? Was it 3? Was it 7? I mean, I don't know, you know. Yeah. May you never be alone like me. All right, the day was a hot one. You gotta know some Hank, know that one. The day was a hot one, and the men had difficulty in ramming down their cartridges. So slick was the iron ramrod and hands thoroughly wet with perspiration. Couldn't grip it. You couldn't grip it. All expedients were resorted to, but mainly jabbing the ramrods against the ground and the rocks. This, with the usual causes, undressed our advancing line. Just rest it on the ground like that so you won't be... Turn it up. You don't hurt it. I just hold it in place. There you go. This, with the usual causes, undressed our advancing line. Still all were yelling and pressing forward through the growing wheat breast high, toward a body of enemy in sight but beyond the range of our guns, when suddenly a third line of the enemy arose 40 yards in front as if by magic and leveled their shining line of gun barrels on the wheat heads. Though taken by surprise, the roar of our guns sounded along all our whole line. We had caught the drop on them, redoubled our yells in a rush, and the work is done. The earth just seemed to open and take in that line, which 5 minutes ago was so perfect. So they just wade into them. Can you imagine a solid front, as far as you can see, of Confederate infantry advancing through this field, loading and firing as they advance? In the midst of that line, you would see North Carolinians and Union soldiers, for that matter. Of course, the field would have boulders in them, all right, rocks. They find a rock, what are they doing? You would see those soldiers out there taking their ramrod, which is sticking out of the barrel, and hitting it against that rock because they can't drive it anymore, right? So, you know, it's discombobulated. I've never had really adequate words to describe an advancing line. When I was a kid, I used to think, and this was true in some cases, that they would march at right shoulder shift in perfect alignment and go across the field and take the fire. What it looks like, the more and more I read about it, is once they're engaged with the enemy, the officers turn them loose, and it's more like a fox hunt. You're advancing across that field, yelling and firing as you come, you know, and it's just slowly a slow walk or a gait, like you quail hunting, you know, out there in the field, and you're encouraging each other. In other words, you're advancing and firing at the same time. That's also could be a scenario too. Any questions? All right. Okay, well, let's walk down to the cross. Actually, no, let's stop at the cannons. Let's go down to the cannons right here and let's discuss them. As much to make as a cast iron gun, but you get back to the visitor center, I got the whole 3-inch printout for you. That wrought iron takes a lot longer to make because you don't cast it. You beat that wrought iron into like strips of it. You beat it into a sheet. You press it. I guess is a better word than beating it. You press it into sheets, and you wrap that around layers and layers of wrought iron sheets to make that tube over there. That's what makes it so strong. If you were to cut it, it would look like it would have like hundreds of little straws in it, in the ends of it, right there, little bitty straws. But those straws, when they started, you know, were a lot larger. Anyway, I'm not a metallurgist, but it's stronger. And that really was educational for me, finding that out. I never knew there was a casting difference in them. I just thought the Parrots and the 3-inch were cast the same way. They look the same. I assumed they were cast, but they're not. They're not. Yeah.
Related to the speed you were talking about in a line advance.
Yeah.
They use drums.
They use what?
They use drums to set up.
They would use drums. They would use bugles, but I don't know how much they could hear. Most of the time, what they're using is one thing that you can readily guess is they're using the flag, number one, But to keep their alignment, what most of y'all don't know is that the file closers, your sergeants would have at the end of the company, they would have a little bitty flag on the end of a bayonet. So on a micro scale, you could see the ends of your company line. Those 30 men that you're trying to keep a line coming across through here, you would have guidons. And of course, the file closers, the men behind it are to usher you, to keep everything. They would command people to either give or take. That line is going to be compressing and expanding constantly, crimping, if you will. Sometimes you'll have gaps in the line, but like between she and I, and other times, her being smaller, I'd be crowding her out, So that happens. A smaller guy like me would get pushed out. So there I would be. We're supposed to be 2 ranks, and I might be in front of everybody. I can't get back in, or I might get squeezed out behind, and I can't get back in. That's when you got the sergeant in your ear, So, telling you what your shortcomings are. No pun intended. Right there. So I want to talk a little bit about this. I spent in 20th New York. I believe the 20th New York history. I believe that they list Cooper's battery as being up here instead of Reynolds' battery. And I didn't have enough time, or I haven't had enough time to really break that down, the discrepancy of this, what's going on. But Reynolds is under Breck, and he has 3 sections. If this is the correct one, which I think it is, Breck's guns would have only had 4 guns up on the line, these 3-inch ordnance rifles. There was 2 more guns, or 1 section, that was sent over here to Stone's Brigade. You can see this in the Llano maps right there. Now, how long they stay, I've never read any accounts of artillery support, but it's kind of neat to think that there's 2 guns over there by the McPherson barn. We don't have a monument for that today. So, we don't know. Yeah, there you go. See, that's why you thought we had everything. We don't have everything. So what I'm saying, that seem to have a lot of artillery questions right here. This battery front of about four guns would have been about 50 to 60 yards wide. Somebody was asking me why the guns are so close together. Well, you need to spread them out a little more, all right? These guns would have been a 50 to 60 yard front right here, and you might have had infantry interspersed in between them sometimes. Now that's a true fan right there, I guarantee you. Oh, Stuff Rider's hat blew off, and he's so famous he didn't even have to pick it up. He is so devoted to you that he even stopped taping to pick up his hat. All right, so these guns would have started firing explosive shells, and then they would have started firing canister, which is your short range round. The problem with the 3-inch rifles is they're rifled, and when you're shooting canister out of a rifle gun, they're smaller balls compared to the Napoleon. Okay, well, what's the big deal, man? When you got rifling, ladies and gentlemen, it's like putting choke on a shotgun. All right, in other words, that canister, those balls are going to whirl around that rifling as they come out, and when they come out, they're going to be spinning. In other words, they'll go further, but they won't spread as far like a shotgun. That limits your defensive capabilities. You ordinarily only want 1 projectile to strike a soldier, right? Because you get maximum return on your round. Well, if you put them into a denser shot right through there, then it's not going to be as effective. Plus, it wears your rifle out. Anyway, they don't stay here long, and they're limbering up, and this tree line, which is back behind you, is not here. They limber up, and they would draw across to the seminary. Now, to preface that, and I'll read a quote from them in just a second. To preface that, the North Carolinians can initially see these guns. Can you imagine marching into the faces? One thing about Civil War infantry lined up against you. How'd you like to come up against these cannons? And instantly, I imagine they're trying to plink them off. If I was into self-preservation, I would try to pick off anybody I could see around that cannon. So I think they start taking casualties, and that makes them withdraw readily quickly. But my point to you is, when they withdraw, that is a significant amount of firepower that's taken off this line. Now it's up to the small arms. And once again, you've got, over 1,000 Confederates coming right at you. And now your artillery leaves. Don't think these men weren't seeing this as they galloped off from here. They're seeing North Carolinians come around the corner. They're seeing North Carolinians come from in front of them. And now they're seeing their artillery go to the rear. Cigarette? All right. Not for you.
No.
Right? It's time to go. It's time to go. Now, everything is happening in real time. Let me read this quote before I get back to that. Gates' history of the 20th New York says that Breck's guns, which had most gallantly breasted the storm and poured grape and canister into the foe with destructive effect, was not sent to the rear to save it from capture, was sent to the rear to save it from capture, and the brigade prepared to retire. Now this is where I can't figure it out. That's what Gates says. You want to come out here and you want big Gettysburg historian, you want to come out here, you want to do these walks, you want random 30 people staring at you on a Friday morning in a hot sweating sun, just flat miserable. You want to be that person? All right, you figure this out right here. The only problem with Gates's recollections of Breck's guns is, Breck writes in his report and says, as the infantry were falling back close upon the guns, no fire was opened. Well, and the four pieces again retired and took position upon the ridge running south from the brick seminary, there's the brick seminary, and in rear of the belt of timber to the left of that building. Right here. To the left of that building, right? So that'd be Union left, your left right through here. I don't know. How do you reconcile that? You got the battery commander saying he couldn't fire. And you got Gates saying, man, he lit him up. I don't know. You got that North Carolinian, he's writing as an old man too. Many years, many decades after the battle. He says they went through a storm of shot and shell and canister. I don't know. They didn't stay long, is all I can tell you. Any questions?
Are you going to hit on what the Iron Brigade does?
We're working our way down to there. Let's go down to the cross, a couple monuments down, and we'll regroup there. Let's see what we can do here. I like this. We're going to be out here a while now. Some working done. Okay. The 52nd North Carolina pressed from the front. Private Edwin Gearhart of the 142nd Pennsylvania recalled the Rebs, quote, kept steadily advancing until we could see their officers stepping in front, swinging their swords. Suddenly a cloud of smoke arose from their line, and almost instantly the balls began to whistle about us. Captain Horatio Warren remembered men, quote, mowed down by the terrible fire from front and flank. What does that mean? What it says to me is the North Carolinians are obviously coming around the flank. So the story about Gates saying that this half of the line falls first, I don't know. You know, not that it really matters. Everybody's leaving. But to these soldiers, it meant something. It was something to the honor of the unit. Now, in the defense of the 121st and the 20th down there, I don't know what they're supposed to do anyway. I mean, I don't care who you are, you're given. Or you're going to be swallowed up or annihilated. Your choice. Either way, you're moving. Okay? So, it does appear to me that it is unraveling from left to right. And this gentleman is not intending, you know, he's not writing this 40 years after the battle, when all you remember is glory. What he is writing is a couple weeks after the battle, when he remembers his chaos going on, pure chaos. Okay. Captain Horatio Warren remembered the men mowed down by the terrible fire from front and flank, and then in sheer desperation we were ordered to charge. You can't go back, you can't go forward. That order came from the brigade commander, Colonel Chapman Biddle. Biddle reportedly grabbed the regimental colors and led the men back into the fray. Where does that put Biddle, though? Going back to Gates' account of him commanding the left and this the right. I don't know if that's true or not, but Biddle's on the right. I can tell you he's around this area. This is where Chapman Biddle physically is.
Did he charge forward or to the left?
At this time, I think he grabs the flag and he's trying to get this disorganized mob that used to be a battle line to stay, and he's trying to get them to come forward. So if you're standing in a mob of men, how do you be seen? How are you seen? The flag. And where do you take the flag? You take the flag away from the crowd and you bring it back out and you let it wave, and the men have something to form on. That's what it's for. That's your brigade. That's your direction. Wherever the flag goes is where you go. That's why it's so important to them. Okay? So, you know, basically, Biddle's trying to get them to rally up on them. And it says that he grabbed the, I don't know who asked me that, but they grabbed the regimental colors and led the men back into the fray. Now, to add to that, John Thorpe of the 47th North Carolina recalled that just then a federal officer came in view and rode rapidly forward bearing a large federal flag. The scattered Federals swarmed around him as bees cover their queen. Love that. In the midst of a heterogeneous, he could have gotten a better word than that. In the midst of a heterogeneous mass of men, acres big, he approached our left, when all guns in front and from right and left turned on the mass and seemingly shot the whole to pieces. So what I think they're talking about is acres and acres of Union soldiers out in that field. And what I think the moment he's describing there, ladies and gentlemen, 40 years after the battle, is this Confederate battle line either on that crest of the ridge or this crest of the ridge right there, depending on which swell you're on right here. They see acres and acres of Union soldiers trying to shake out a battle line. And they get up here, ladies and gentlemen, and it's a shooting gallery in here. They're shooting them to pieces. Now, how do you ever reform a line doing that? Look at Pickett's charge. I'm not picking on the Union soldiers. It is very hard to reform Napoleonic formations under fire as they're going across the field. And so they shoot them to pieces. The losses were heavy. One company had 5 men out of 34 left. Company K only had 3 men. And Company B, 3 brothers, Samuel Enos and Adam Kramer, all died from wounds received today, on July 1st, I should say, on this battle action. 3 brothers, all dead. 1 engagement. You imagine that, mama? All 3 sons gone. Adam Kramer, Colonel Robert P. Cummins was mortally wounded trying to rally the men. All in all, $560 men. He sounds like that car after they got through with that brunch. That's what it sounded like. Something similar, except it was lower. You know, it sounded like they had like a V8 under there. So I'm like, well, anyway. All in all, there were 560 men that were casualties out of 886 men who went forward that day. All right, now I didn't cover this on July 1st because I had other people coming out to talk, but I want to cover this right now, and I'm surprised nobody asked me about it prior. John H. Robinson, there is a story on this field, and probably should have done it back there. The 52nd North Carolina, ladies and gentlemen, is they're crossing the field across through here. On the south side of the Hagerstown Road, there's Union Cavalry. Now, I don't know exactly where they are, but they're probably in that modern neighborhood that none of you ever see. You'd have to drive back in there. I believe there's a veterinarian's office back in there, etc. But there's a neighborhood back in there. I believe there's Union Cavalry in there. Now, I don't know what they're doing, but they are threatening the Confederates. And when I say threatening the Confederates, it looks like they're going to attack. Now, this is what happens. The only time I've ever heard of it, maybe in the Civil War. I'd have to think about that. John H. Robinson of the 52nd North Carolina, the adjutant, states as the regiment advanced that they were threatened from the right, which is what I just said. Quote, while on the advance and under heavy fire, Colonel Marshall formed his regiment in a square to guard against attack from this body, and at the same time deploy Company B as skirmishers. This maneuver was executed by the regiment as promptly and accurately as if it had been on the drill grounds. So what do they mean by that? I have never done this in a reenactment or anything like that, so we'll see how it goes. All right, come on up here. I need, won't you get up here since your wife let you come out?
Thank you.
Come out right here. You want to come up? Yeah, just stand right. Oh, no. No, I don't know exactly which part goes what, all right? But I got 4 people right here. This is a battle line as we're coming across. This goes back to Napoleon days. Now, I don't know if this maneuver is done here or it's done here. Which side of the ridge is it's done, I do not know, and I don't think anybody else does, or at least I haven't seen a source for it. So what they end up doing, I don't know exactly if this is correct, is that probably one of the centerpieces is going to remain your front. All right, and so what happens, let's make him the centerpiece. And what's going to do is the right flank, Confederate right, your left is bent back around, and the left flank is bent back around, right? And then somehow they get it like this. In other words, I have guns pointed in all 4 directions. I've made a square. Now in front of him, thank y'all, in front of him, they have soldiers. I don't know if they did it this particular way, but one way is you have the front rank. If you have a rear rank right here, you have a front rank of soldiers that has fixed bayonets, and you take the butt of the musket and you stick it into the ground. So in other words, the musket is like this, with the bayonet pointed this way. No horse, and no human for that matter, is going to drive themselves on that bayonet. That's what you're doing. What you're counting on, here's the catch though. You've got to hold that position while a body of horses gallops down upon you. All right? It'll work if everybody does their job. But what it does is it sets up a little, for lack of a better word, it's not termed this way, it sets up a little fort. So the cavalry can do all they want. They can ride around whichever way they want. There's not a weak spot in this line. That's called a square. And it was more used in Napoleon's days when they had smoothbore weapons and they had big cavalry charges. Well, apparently the 52nd formed into a square also. I would guess if you held a gun to my head, I would think it would be on this side of the ridge. But then again, I can't reconcile how the 52nd formed the square and was still lapping around Biddle's flank. Maybe it happened afterwards. I don't know. I'll leave you to that to ponder. But that is the only place on this field, and a rare time, I'll just say it this way, a rare time in the Civil War I've ever even heard of that maneuver even being conducted. I mean, who learns that? But they did. Now, that's what happens when you have a year or so to train, nothing to do, If you were in the Army of Northern Virginia, these men had not been in the Army of Northern Virginia. They're new to it. The Army of Northern Virginia, that would have been dispensed with. You would have known from the combat veteran officers around you that that's usually unnecessary. Cavalry, you just shoot them. They'll run off a couple of times, right? Does that make sense? So that's kind of cool. I thought square. Any questions? No. They getting tired. We're gonna figure them out. All right, so let's do this, ladies and gentlemen. Why don't we take it back to where it all began? If y'all like to stay on the road, we can just go around the road and take that left down there. Let's go down. My last stop is that monument over there, but I don't want to stand in the sun. So let's go walk over to these trees which are nearest to the site, and we can see from there, I think, just fine. How's life in tree?
Oh, just right. We're grandparents.
Like killed it so long.
Y'all better find out what's causing that.
Yeah. I'm afraid it didn't work to find out. The process of getting the tree vegetables. Little girl, 2-year-old little girl. Curly headless pretty.
Really? Oh, that's the best. I was a couple of years ago, I'm walking on the giant supermarket with me, and the meat man was putting out meats with his own. That's what it sounded like. Meat man's putting out meat. He looks at me. He looks at them twin girls I got. He looks at me. He goes, "Aren't grandchildren wonderful?" I said to him, "Yeah, I bet they reckon they are."
Hope to see them.
Yeah. Who got, luckily my friend Andy Kimbrough from Tupelo, Mississippi, from Houston, we graduated Houston. Thank God that he was, he took the award at the 30-year class reunion for youngest child. He beat me. I don't know though. There's always a trade-off. You know, I just didn't have the maturity at 20 or 30 to. My ex would argue I still don't. What do you mean? All right, now let's rehash. So now look back behind you. Look at the walk that we just came through, ladies and gentlemen, right? Look at where we came from. All the way down where that white car is where we started. Okay, there's your battle line. Now, once again, to reiterate, you had Breck's guns up in there, probably 50 to 60 yards. And then you have the 142nd, which is up in there. But if you remember what I told you last time, now you can see the 151st Pennsylvania is right in front of that seminary. Now, earlier that day, I believe it was Paul's brigade. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But Paul's brigade, while they were stationed there, had thrown up some light breastworks. Whatever that means. Some fence rails and some dirt and everything. And that's where the 151st was. I'm writing that for you trivia hunters out there. But that's where they start. Now, I don't know the sequence of things, and I don't know if I'm exactly right about this. I'll read you the accounts and you can make your own judgment. But the line is, I'm comfortable in saying that the line was engaged, Biddle's line was already engaged when the 151st is summoned. Now, a gentleman at the last stop asked me if I was going to talk about the Iron Brigade. Well, the Biddle's Brigade, as you can see from here, is back there where we just walked. The Iron Brigade is down here in these woods. So that fighting, you kind of have like a salient where the Iron Brigade is back in the woods, and the 26th North Carolina and the 11th North Carolina that are coming from here, they just stride into the Iron Brigade. You want to talk about some of the most heavy, point blank, shoot them till there's nobody else to shoot type combat, that's in these woods. The 26th North Carolina lost 500 out of 800 men taking this position. One regiment, 500 men down, killed and wounded, all shot out. Now I want to tell you this, I didn't say this on the first tours because it wasn't relevant, but Pender's division, those South Carolinians, when they come through here a couple minutes later, one South Carolinian, I've never forgotten this statement he made. He could tell that the North Carolinians were green. How did he know they were green? He said when they walked through the area they had just fought, and they're headed this way. When they walked through the area, they could tell that they had shot it out with the Iron Brigade. In other words, those green North Carolinians stood there and fired, reloaded and fired, and reloaded and fired. That South Carolinian said that veteran troops, which he was a veteran, would not do that. I've never forgotten the lesson. He said veteran troops would close with the enemy and get it over with. You don't stand out there and have a shootout. The longer you stand in front, the more people you're going to lose. So it behooves you to close with the enemy. You lose more. I know this is an oxymoron, but you apparently lose more people, lose less people the closer you get. Because you're going to resolve it. Either one way or the other, this thing's going to be over. Either you're going to whip me or I'm going to whip you, but we're not going to stand out here all day and shoot this thing out. And that's what they did. But conversely, the Iron Brigade is shot to pieces. Now these are Western men. I don't need to go into it. The talk's not about the Iron Brigade anyway, and y'all know it anyway. But Michigan, Wisconsin, Indiana, these boys out there, they Western men. And they got a lot of pride. And just like those Texans or whoever else is a crack elite outfit, they got a reputation to maintain. In fact, they even wear their own special hats, kind of like the berets used to be. Special, all right? So they put it together, ladies and gentlemen. Even though they have heavy losses, they still manage to keep some semblance of a line as they are pushed out of these woods. What I'm here to tell you is only the most disciplined veteran troops could pull that off. And I'm not saying that they're any better or any worse. In fact, you could argue that Biddle is in a untenable situation on this field right out here. But nevertheless, you can tell the merit of or the strength of a unit. Can it hold its cohesion under pressure? Green troops can't do that because they're freaking out. That Iron Brigade does a fighting withdrawal all the way through these woods. And it is here, ladies and gentlemen, probably on the back side where the road is, somewhere in that general area, where they meet the 151st Pennsylvania coming into position. Now you got to remember, I don't know what the Iron Brigade had left when they were drawing out of the woods, but I can tell you by, if they had 400 men, that would surprise me. From the number of people that wounded that are already left, and I hate to say it, but there's a lot of people that leave anyway. So you're going to lose a few of those people too. All right? What does the 151st Pennsylvania appear to them as? 400 men coming onto line appears to the Iron Brigade to be reinforcements up there to help them, to relieve them. That's the way I would look at it. And number two, I assume this, I imagine by this time, after all that fighting, that they're a little low on ammo. So between that coming up, the 151st, to their chagrin, the Iron Brigade goes past them. Whoever the gentleman was that asked me about the Iron Brigade, all right? They fall back past them. And the 151st is like, whoa, 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 we were coming up to join, on your left flank. The Iron Brigade keeps going. Probably for, one of those two reasons right there. Probably just a misunderstanding. But then again, I mean, that's not, easy for me to say, ain't nobody shooting at me. Regardless, I'm not accusing the Iron Brigade of anything. They reform over on the seminary, which I take in the 20-30 minute respite that they have before Pender's division comes through, that they got some more ammo in there. But anyway, what you need to know is 151st is up here on the crest of this hill by themselves. Now, by this time, you've got 300, probably 200 to 300 men from the 26th North Carolina that are still advancing. You've got men, I believe they were slightly smaller, from the 11th North Carolina that are advancing also. I don't know where the two lines would have met. or how far apart they would have been, but you've got hundreds of North Carolinians still pressing up the slope of this hill. On the other hand, you've got the 121st, you've got the 20th New York, 121st back there, they're unraveling. And they're going toward the end. So what I'm trying to set up in your mind is if you're the 151st and you see on your right the Iron Brigade, which I've already described, and you look down to your left, and what do you see? You see Biddle's line, the rest of your brigade line going to pieces. What are you thinking right now? Yeah, somebody said it. I mean, we're going to have serious problems up here, but you can't do anything. You're up here by yourself. All right. Now, the 151st PA is known as the School Teacher Regiment. That's how, you know, that would make a good test question. Who is the School Teacher Regiment? You know, as soon as I say all this, it's not going to be on there. There was only 60 men that were school teachers, though. Now, who's leading them? 5'6", 28-year-old, square jaw, broad forehead with a beard, George McFarland led the regiment. 28 years old. He was one of the 60 educators. He's a former schoolmaster. I hate to say this, ladies and gentlemen, but if you look, I'm not talking about generals. I'm talking about lower rank officers that were picked from civilian life. What do all these officers on both the North and South always have in common, which you take for granted today?
Education.
They have an education. They can read and they can write. Right there. Was that her? All right, there you go. So you put your Boston hat back on. The Yankees getting worried. All right. So he's a former schoolmaster, this McFarland. He enlisted in September of '62, and at the regimental organization, he was voted in as lieutenant colonel. He at once set about to study the manuals, which if you've ever, look them up online. You want to see what you're up to, you want to be a big dog officer and lead your command in a glorious charge, look at what you have to learn. You know, it's why I'm still out here giving tours. Right? You think I want to supervise government employees? No, I don't want to supervise government employees. It's a thankless thing. We whine a lot. So, in other words, McFarland transferred his knowledge from running a school to running a regiment. Your lieutenant colonel is your executive officer, next to the colonel. He's second in command. When Colonel Allen went home on sick leave, that left the younger lieutenant colonel in charge. And that's how you get to be 28 years old. 151st is ordered to advance to fill the gap between the Iron Brigade and the right flank of Biddle's, the 142nd PA. As I said earlier, they were originally positioned in the breastworks built by Paul's brigade back at the seminary. The rest of the brigade was probably in the act or not far from starting their retrograde movement back to the cemetery. Meanwhile, the Iron Brigade is falling back. Now, topping the crest here, Pettigrew's line came into sight. 2,500 men. For Private Randall Sayre of Company B, this was, quote, was the first time I had seen was the first sight I had of the rebel stars and bars. There was a full regiment from 50 to 100 yards in front. So when they come over that ridge, he's saying those rebels are right here in this dip. That's how close they are as they start wading into them. The 151st, without any, hesitation, opens fire. Pow, 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 pow. You can hear that rolling thunder as it goes down the line. That white smoke starts to shoot up. And there's no wind. And so these woods quickly fill with smoke as each company comes online and starts discharging their weapons. Just like a reenactment. What are those lieutenants and captains in the back? Load, boys, load! Keep it hot. They encourage the men. as they poured into them. The instruction from Schoolmaster McFarland now paid dividends from their training. Quote, having previously cautioned the men against excitement and firing at random, and the enemy being partly concealed in the woods on lower ground than we occupied, I did not order them to fire a regular volley, but each man to fire as he saw an enemy on which to take a steady aim. In other words, fire at will. This was strictly observed, and during the next hour's terrific fighting, many of the enemy were brought low. I don't know about an hour. Corporal Nathan Cooper observed also that his gun on this hot day became too hot to handle, and they had to resort to driving the bullets down with rocks, with the ramrod against the rocks. To the left, some of the Pennsylvanians observed the deterioration of the rest of the brigade line. Here's where they are, here's where they are, right there. So, quote, our regiment stood alone, no more men to the left of us, and just then our captain gave the command to deploy as skirmishers. For those of you that don't know, to deploy as skirmishers means that you don't come up and you form into straight battle line. In other words, you don't form up like this. In other words, give me a few feet over there. You would probably have 5 to 10 paces between each soldier. Why does he order them to deploy as skirmishers? Basically, they go into Indian style fighting. But in other words, they quit bunching together. If you bunch together, then you present a target. An individual human is a lot harder to hit than 20 together, right? A lot of times soldiers hit something that they didn't intend to because they're firing in the general direction of it. So anyway, he orders it. That saved some of our lives, for we scattered. On the right flank, the situation was not any better. The Iron Brigade continued to fall back, fighting at every step, but numbers diminishing rapidly. Quote, in battle, all of our senses are quickened, recalled the schoolmaster, and moments seem to contain many times 60 seconds. End of quote. The 151st stood on the crest of these woods for what must have been an eternity to the men, but probably was no more than 10 minutes on this field. The unit lost 337 men during the battle, which is a total only exceeded by the 24th Michigan from the Iron Brigade down here in these woods. They entered the battle. They lost 337 men. They entered the battle with 467. Yeah, shooting, huh? All right, now we're getting to the conclusion part right here, but I want y'all to know that Biddle's brigade, as they sweep off of it, the 151st is going to get caught by those flanking North Carolinians. There's no telling how many of them fell in that field getting back to the seminary in that crossfire. I've already described it to you. Now, as best they can, are going to stop here, somewhere in here. As best they can, the Union troops are going to make their way back to the seminary right there where that big red brick building is, and they're going to rally. How many of them rallied, I don't know. I kind of, the more I study that last action at the seminary, the more I find it interesting, so to speak. You know, how long did they stay? I don't know. Makes you wonder. But they fall back, they didn't stay too long. They had about a 20-minute respite until Pender's division it can pass through and continue the attack. They leapfrogged Pettigrew's brigade. In other words, literally the North Carolinians were laying down where we're standing right now, and the South Carolinians came up, walked over the top of them, and they were cheering them as they came past. Now the remnants of Biddle's brigade, along with the Iron Brigade, along with Stone's and whoever else, along with the hodgepodge miscellaneous artillery over there, they hold off the Confederates for probably another 20 minutes. But once again, just like Biddle's brigade here, the Confederates find a gap on the Union left and they're able to exploit it. And so the backside of Seminary Ridge becomes a shooting gallery again, that green space, which I told you earlier is where the two divisions were deployed. You can stand behind that seminary. You have no idea what that was like on July 1st of '63. Now, that's a killing zone. And for defenseless people, I mean, they have no military formation and they're so thick you can't miss. But I know some of you may find that cruel, but you know, the mentality is, if you knew that that guy that you saw running away right there, if you had the foresight to know that he might be the guy, that man right there might be the guy that shoots you a year from now somewhere else, would you shoot him? If you knew that. And that's the mentality they have. If I don't shoot him today, he's going to shoot me tomorrow. Self-preservation, people. So anyway, they fall back. While here, Biddle was conversing with Gates, and he, quote, received a musket ball wound in the scalp. The sound of the blow was distinctly heard, and both gentlemen thought the injury of a serious character. I bet they did. Can you imagine a lead ball ricocheting off your head? Now, some of you out here probably take it. Won't be naming who. Biddle got his head damaged though and returned as soon as he could. So if you want to picture Chapman Biddle, he's riding around, you know, like that guy from the Revolutionary War, you know, playing the, y'all wouldn't know that. All right. Gates' horse received 5 balls from the 20th New York. Now Gates would later claim that it was 5:30 in the afternoon when they reached Cemetery Hill. So that'll give you a point between evacuating there and getting back to Cemetery Hill. So in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, Ben pointed out to me, my boy pointed out to me the other day that it has become a game among some of y'all to count how many times I say in conclusion. And that sometimes I say in conclusion quite many times, and then I don't conclude for some reason. And he's writing back and he's pointing out, of course, as 16-year-olds are apt to do, his father's shortcomings. And he says, Daddy, why don't you conclude the program when you say you're going to conclude the program? And I said, well, the problem with you is you've never attended a Baptist church in the South. Because, you know, the Lord's work is never done. Especially when preaching to the heathen out here. Thank you very much. All right, there. So in conclusion, 121st, I'll try to get these in line right here. The 121st on the left flank, first monument that we stopped at on the battle line, they take in 263 men, they lose 179. That's 68%, people. Next line, 80th New York, 20th New York, whichever one you want to call them. 287 men, they lose 170. I have a breakdown of kill, wounded, and capture if you want that. That's 59%. Next regiment, the Cross, 142nd Pennsylvania. 335 men, they lose 211. That is 62%, 63%. 6 out of 10. 151st Pennsylvania, who we're ending the tour with, in conclusion. 467 men, 337 lost. That's 72% casualties. 72% casualties. 51 killed, 211 wounded, and 75 captured. How does 75 get captured? Yeah. There's some people that don't want to make that run. They can see what's happening. What do you think you're looking at as you get ready to run back across up here? You can already see them falling. You going to run to there, or you going to run there? From there to that gauntlet. I'll give it to you. I'll give you the choice. Either you can go to a Confederate prison and take your chances on survival, or you can run the gauntlet. Now, which one you going to do? Because that's the only 2 choices you got. So Well, that's what you do. You make that choice, which they did both, right? Out there. Now, in conclusion, 15 now. I want to close with one thing, and I'm way over time, so I want to close. I do, but I didn't mention this the last time, and really this is a lecture within itself. Maybe we'll do this for the winter lecture. I think this is more of a PowerPoint. I want to close with Thomas A. Rowley. Remember where we started this tour? All right. Did I not mention that some of the troops in between the lines were talking about maybe they were dealing when they had to march down here and get shot for nothing? Did I not mention to you that they may have been dealing with the drunk general? Out here? Well, little background. Thomas A. Rowley hailed from Pittsburgh. And if I ever met a bunch of drunks, it's from Pittsburgh. Okay. I'm sorry, sir. I caught you at a sober moment.
It's Friday morning.
I bet if I told you there was a Ravens fan going out drinking, you get up, though. No, you're a good sport. Rowley is a Mexican War veteran and got in the Civil War early, commanding the 102nd Pennsylvania. I believe that's in the 6th Corps. He is wounded in the head at 7 Pines, but not enough. And by November of '62, Rowley was a brigade commander. He had been bumped from colonel to brigadier general. In March of '63, he is transferred from the 6th Corps and took command of the 3rd Division, which of course leads it on to this field right here. As I said, after Doubleday. Now, I don't, once again, you do the whole lecture on this. Apparently, he had been riding around all day long giving confusing orders, contradictory orders. And he got back to Cemetery Hill, and the Iron Brigade, I believe it was a guy an officer from the Iron Brigade, a lieutenant or a captain, had been designated as, basically for you modern military people, he had been designated as the military police. They called it back then the Provost Marshal. And back there on July 1st on Cemetery Hill, this lieutenant or captain, I used to know his name, I'll figure it out in a minute, but I didn't come out here to speak about it. This little shaved tail officer places Thomas Rowley under arrest for drunkenness on July 1st. Ooh. Right there. Oh, he's done. Oh, he's done right here. The charges during the court-martial were April of '64. Court-martial found him guilty of conduct unbecoming an officer, drunkenness while on duty, and conduct prejudicial to good order and military discipline. Well, they could probably convict me of that last one every day. Conduct prejudicial to good order and military discipline. Stanton, Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton, refused to cashier him. Lincoln got involved some way, but was sent to nevertheless, he never returned to field command, but he was sent to the backwaters. I want to say New York City.
No,
where'd he go?
He sent back to Pittsburgh.
Oh, he's sent back to Pittsburgh, where he would be, ladies and gentlemen, in good company. Thank y'all very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it.